Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining. It's time for another awesome lightning talk. I'm Parag Katkar, your host for tonight. I'm the head of consulting practices at Enrhythm. Enrhythm is a modern product and technology consulting firm, and our practice leads, our engineers, they stay on top of the latest technology trends in the industry. And every Thursday at 5:15 p.m. Eastern Time, one of our consultants shares their knowledge on these exciting trends with you. And this week, Ankita Dhanekula, who is a senior software engineer with us, is going to give us an overview of OAuth 2.0. As a lot of you know, OAuth 2.0 is an authorization framework that enables users to safely share their data between different applications. It's an industry standard that addresses the API security concerns associated with sharing user credentials. And I'm really excited to learn more from Ankita today. So without further ado, let's get it started, Ankita.
Yep. Thanks for the introduction, Parag. Hi all. Good evening. This is Ankita, welcoming you all to today's lightning talk, which is about OAuth 2.0. I'm sure everyone has heard about it, and knowingly or unknowingly might have used it as well. Today, let us all know a little more about it and how it works in the background. Today's agenda is about covering what is OAuth and what is OAuth 1.0 versus 2.0, and what is OAuth 2.0, its roles and grant types. Yeah. Let's see what is OAuth. OAuth is a protocol used for access delegation, where resource owner grants third-party applications to access their resources without sharing their user credentials. Suppose take an example, you want to log into some third-party app. Could be anything like shopping app or some learning app. We'll be seeing options like login with Facebook or Gmail or iCloud. If you don't want to create an account by entering username and password to that portal, you can sign in with Gmail. So here where the OAuth comes into picture. Uh, then, then the team has developed the OAuth 2.0, which is on top of OAuth 1.0. So with 1.0 and 2.0, with 2.0, we have the better support for non-browser applications. 1.0 supports only the web browser applications. And then with 2.0, we have reduced complexity in signing requests and then separation of roles. In 1.0, we don't have separation of roles like auth server, resource server. With 2.0, we have few roles. And then with 2.0, we have short-lived access token and refresh token. 1.0, we have access token and refresh token, which lifespan is like days. But with 2.0, we can set a lifespan like minutes or seconds or hours. Mm. Coming to OAuth 2.0. This OAuth 2.0, which stands for Open Authorization, is a standard designed to allow a website or application to access resources hosted by other apps on behalf of a user. So we have few roles like resource owner, client, resource server, authorization server. So this resource owner is like user or the system that authorizes the client to access resource on their behalf. The client, this is an application that wants to access the user's protected resources. Resource server, the server that hosts the user's protected resources. The authorization server is a server responsible for authorization and token generation. Let's see with this on an example. Um, Suppose resource owner is like a person or an end user, and then client is an application making request on behalf of user, like Zoom or Udemy or Macy's, etc. And then resource server is like a grants permission based on the access token scope. So this access token scope is like an optional. Suppose take an example, the Gmail has a lot of options like Google Drive, photos, apps, etc. Based on the scope, we get the access either to photos or contacts or etc. Then auth server is like Gmail, Microsoft account, FB or iCloud. This is about what their roles and what it does. So this client is like the third party app which you are trying to log in. We'll ask the user, you want to grant the permission. So if the user grants the permission, then this client calls the authorization server, and the server responds back with the access token. And then with the access token, resource server gives the protected resource. Then we have grant types in OAuth 2.0. Like grant types, we have few like authorization code, client credentials, refresh token, and exchange token. So coming to authorization code, this authorization server returns a single use auth code to the client, which is then exchanged for access token. So the application opens a browser to send the user to auth server. The user sees the authorization prompt and approves the app's request. The user is redirected back to the application with an auth code, and the application exchanges the auth code for an access token. So suppose there will be a request something like this. Response type is code, and then client ID is this, redirect URL, scope, and state. So this tells, this response type tells, code tells this is the auth server, the application is initiation for the authorization code flow. And then client ID. The client ID is like the auth server issues the registered client a client identifier, which is nothing but like a client ID. This is unique to auth server. Redirect URL. This tells the auth server where to send the user back after they approve the request. Scope, as I said before, this is like the permissions, which is completely optional. The state is like application generates a random string and includes in the request. It should check the same values returned after the user authorized the app. This property is to prevent CSRF attacks. So with this request, we'll get the response like code. And then this state, this value and this value should match. And once we get this response with the code, then again it requests with this code for the access token. This access token is something like this, which is of type JWT or SAML. If we decode this access token, we'll be seeing few parameters like subject, scope, issuer, audience, grant type, expiry, time to live, yeah, etc. Then we have client credential flow. It involves an application exchanging its application credentials, such as client ID and client secret for an access token. So this client credentials flow is best suited if there is a machine-to-machine application. In this flow, the system must authenticate and authorize the application instead of the user. The user doesn't come into picture for this flow. So here, the application sends the client ID and client secret to the auth server. The auth server validates the client ID and client secret. To validate this, again, we have few methods. I'll explain that. And then once this client ID and client secret are validated, this auth server responds back with the access token. Again, this application uses this access token and calls the API. And then this API responds back with the required data. So as I said, to validate this client ID and client secret, we have couple of methods like client secret authentication and then private key JWT authentication. So client secret authentication will be using client ID and client secret. So this client secret is like a high entropy value generated by auth. Auth is like again an IAM provider. So when you create an application, the client secret is known by both application and auth. So your application gets authenticated by including that client secret in the request. So this can be as part of the JSON body as post, or in the header also you can be sent with using base64 encoded. The other one is like private key JWT authentication. So this is like client prepares a JSON with the requested data. So this is the requested data. This JSON is prepared and then signed using with RS-256. This is passed in the header. And then with that data, we'll get a JWT token. This JWT token is called client assertion. The client makes a request for an access token to the authorization server using these parameters, like this client assertion and the grant type as client credentials flow, and then client assertion type, which is JWT bearer. Then we get the access token back. This is about the client credentials flow. Then we have the refresh token. These tokens are used to obtain a new access token when the current access token becomes invalid or expires. This is more of an like a auth code. So this sample request looks like this grant type should be a refresh token, and then refresh token is something like this, which is again a JWT token. So I'll just show you this sample. So I don't have an account to ChatGPT. So I can log in using email address and then giving the password by entering manually, or I can go with this continue with Google or any of these options. So if I do this, that means here the OAuth is coming into picture. Background, the OAuth does this for us. Yeah, here it is asking for any of the email. See, this I logged in without providing any credentials. This is how OAuth works actually.
Thanks a lot, Ankita. Really informative talk. And reminder to everyone, we do these lightning talks every Thursday at 5:15 p.m. Eastern. And next week, Godfrey Best, who is a senior software engineer with us, is going to give us an overview of local first web development. Local first web development provides a better user experience. It increases the resiliency and responsiveness and also improves the security. So I'm really curious to know about this. Make sure you mark your calendar for next week. Thank you all once again for joining. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you guys next week.